Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm taking you to the Great League, where Bolton just hit rank 1 in the entire world on the Go Battle League leaderboards, with a team built around Pangoro and Shadow Talonflame. These battles were submitted to the channel by the one and only Bolton, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now this is a very unbalanced team, with it being ABA weak to Charm, triple weak to Dedenne and Azumarill, so to me not necessarily a team that I would recommend for those looking to gain ELO, but this team was perfectly positioned to cut through the leaderboard's meta. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, Pangoro off to a tough start as it leads into Clodsire. Immediate safe switch into Goodra, and Clodsire is not switching out. Goodra has such a massive pacing advantage. Goodra able to land the Aqua Tail, dealing valuable chip damage to the Clodsire on the CMP tie. Clodsire returns fire with a Sludge Bomb. There's going to be a switch out. In comes Shadow Gyarados, and this is an incredibly important Pokemon for Bolton to bait out. Shadow Gyarados would absolutely destroy the Shadow Talonflame. Gyarados shields once and gets a full farm down. Unfortunately, Gyarados' energy will go everywhere into this team. Pangoro gets brought back out, but Pangoro is going to be hit with Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail. Gyarados already at Aqua Tail number 2, and just like that, shields are now back at even. Pangoro will immediately undertap the Night Slash, just needing to take this knockout, and it's going to be all up to Talonflame. In comes Talonflame. The damage already done by the Goodra helps out so much in this matchup. The Clodsire already revealed that they are on Sludge Bomb, so no Stone Edge to worry about. Flame Charge will be shielded, and again it ends up being a CMP tie. Talonflame no shield Sludge Bomb does do big damage. The Clodsire continuing to stay in, and it appears the opponent could be weak to Talonflame in the back. Talonflame looking for the farm down. In the back is Meowscarada, and look at that damage from the one Incinerate. Fly picks up the knockout. In comes Clodsire. That gets farmed down as well, and that's going to be a game 1 win. Now you might be a bit surprised to see Meowscarada, but it is a Pokemon that is seeing a bit of increased usage at high ELO. We move to game number 2. Pangoro going to be met with a Talonflame. Talonflame will have to undertap the Fly, because if they go for good timing, which they do here, then Pangoro can now threaten a knockout with a close combat and force a shield. Enforcing a shield advantage when you led a fighter into a flyer is honestly perfect. That's probably exactly what Bolton was hoping for, so he's more than happy to let this go, and now in comes Goodra. Goodra is at an energy deficit here. Fly gonna be no shielded. It looks like shields for this game are going to Shadow Talonflame, and that's gonna be really nice as a Fortress gets safe swapped, and look at the Incinerate damage from this Talonflame. Talonflame will have to give up the shield on the Rock Tomb, but will exit with 80 energy. This energy going to be extremely threatening if the opponent decides to bring back in their own Talonflame. They're waiting down the switch timer. They bring back in their own Talonflame to immediately be pressured by the Fly. Fly is going to be shielded. It looks like the opponent could be in some trouble. They could be weak in the back to the Talonflame. Bolton puts up the shield on the Fly, immediately going for the Flame Charge, just looking to boost up his attack. Flame Charge is going to land, picking up the knockout. In the back is Marowak, and that's going to be a win. Marowak going to take massive damage from the Fly. There's the combo play with the Goodra. Goodra stored the Aqua Tail from earlier. Aqua Tail knocks out the Marowak, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Pangoro into Corviknight. Corviknight will be able to have a slight pacing advantage in this matchup as it gets to the Air Cutter right before the close combat is available. Nice catch by Bolton, saving energy on Pangoro and catching the Air Cutter onto the Goodra. Goodra will be able to threaten with Thunder Punch. No switch out from the Corviknight, so Goodra may as well lock in some damage and look to further desync the switch timers. Corviknight farms up a ton of energy. Now they're going to make a catch onto Galarian Corsola. Nice catch from the opponent, but what's going to make it awkward for them is the switch timer is almost available, and it comes up just in time. And now this poor Corsola is going to be completely walled by the Pangoro. Pangoro no shields the Nightshade. Nightshade will do quite a bit of damage onto the Pangoro. Now Pangoro approaching 100 energy, going to look to fire off the Night Slash. Night Slash will land. There's the switch out from the opponent into the Corviknight, looking to combo onto the Pangoro, but Pangoro forces the shield with the Night Slash. Pangoro now has to decide, is it worth putting up the shield? Pangoro says no, and in comes Talonflame. Talonflame will get a 2 Incinerate head start, but it's forced to give up a shield as Corviknight does get to the payback. Shadow Talonflame, oh, that's not what it was hoping to see. In comes Unova Stunfisk. Stunfisk will take quite a bit of damage from Flame Charge. Flame Charge will land. Opponent now gets to threaten big super effective damage with a discharge. Talonflame no shields. Talonflame gets rocked. In comes Goodra, and Goodra will immediately be met with the Corsola. Corsola under pressure from the Aqua Tail. Corsola puts up the shield, just trying to get as much Astonish damage as it possibly can. Goodra will be able to take the KO, but Goodra is incredibly low. Stunfisk looking for the Thunder Shock down, gets the Thunder Shock down. In comes the Talonflame, but Talonflame has a shield and a Flame Charge loaded, which means Talonflame can shield, click the Flame Charge, and win the game. Things looked dire. Stunfisk on the Talonflame, but the game's gonna end in a win as Flame Charge knocks out that Stunfisk. That was a tough game to win. Very, very well played. Hopping into the next match, leading Pangoro into Shadow Quagsire. Shadow Quagsire, always a tricky matchup for the Panda. Panda farming up a ton of energy, going for the Night Slash, and a nice catch from the opponent, catching onto Clodsire. Clodsire going to be answered with the Goodra, but there's so much loaded energy on that Quagsire, and that could be a big problem, as the opponent was able to waste the Night Slash energy by catching it onto the Clodsire, and that stored energy will threaten everything. Aqua Tail does big damage to Pangoro. Anything it could throw would do a lot of damage to the Talonflame, so this is going to be an extremely tricky game to win. Goodra Aqua Tail gets shielded up by the Clodsire. Clodsire looking to make a play for switch advantage. Goodra now in a very tough spot, deciding to let this go, but there's not really an easy way to farm down the Clodsire. So in comes Pangoro. Pangoro will throw a few Karate Chops, take the knockout with the Night Slash, and immediately get the boost. Back in comes Quagsire. Quagsire does have the back-to-back charge attacks loaded. Pangoro winning charge attack priority on the boosted Night Slash. Night Slash lands, but it does not knock out the opponent, calling that it's not going to be the close combat. Aqua Tail connects. It's Talonflame versus Talonflame. In the end game, it's going to come down to who wins charge attack priority, and it's the opponent. The opponent has the higher attack Talonflame. The opponent did go for a Brave Bird, which is a big surprise, as Brave Bird means they're now going to take so much more damage from these Incinerates. The unfortunate thing is that the Pangoro is in 1 Incinerate range and 2 Karate Chops will not KO, so this game should already be over. In comes Pangoro. Opponent is going to wait. They send in the Quagsire and they simultaneously KO. Opponent almost found the lose con, but they still have the Talonflame alive in the back, so they take the win. Great lead in the next match, Pangoro into Moltres, and a simultaneous safe switch, Goodra into Shadow Talonflame. Galax making the read that whatever the opponent's safe switch would be, Goodra would be able to handle it, and he was absolutely right, as Talonflame will be able to get the shield back with the fly, but Talonflame is just hopelessly at a pacing disadvantage. It can never catch up. Aqua Tail from Goodra gets the final shield, so all shields will go down if Goodra decides to shield, but Goodra says no. Instead, Goodra opting to let itself get KO'd, and in comes Pangoro. Pangoro will go for the Night Slash as soon as it gets it. Night Slash will be enough to take the knockout. In comes Wigglytuff, and it's time for Shadow Talonflame to sweep. Shadow Talonflame going for the Flame Charge. Flame Charge will inflict big damage onto that Moltres. Moltres will get to grab the final shield with the fly, but it's just too little too late. They actually go for a Brave Bird to limit farm, but it does not matter. This is a boosted fly from the Talonflame, devastating damage onto Wigglytuff. That boosted Incinerate picks up the knockout. Talonflame gets the sweep and takes the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Pangoro into Clodsire. But this time, Pangoro is trying a new strategy. Pangoro is actually not going to be switching out of this bad lead, trying to stay in the lead, get whatever damage the Panda can, to see if maybe this line is going to work a little bit better. CMP tying close combat to an Earthquake here is quite nice, as close combat, while it won't deal a ton of damage, does get Clodsire into the yellow. Earthquake connects, picking up the knockout. In comes Goodra, but opponent will deny the farm as out comes Primeape. Primeape ever deadly with an energy advantage, but it is down a turn. Aqua Tail lands. Goodra very close to another Aqua Tail. Goodra is going to be no shielding. It's the close combat. In comes Talonflame, but before the Incinerate damage can register, Primate will get to the Rage Fist. Rage Fist does deal a pretty solid chunk of health from the Talonflame. Back in comes Clodsire. Clodsire does have a decent amount of energy. Talonflame just looking to boost up its Incinerates. Flame Charge will be shielded. Opponent, oh, they're staying in. It looks like they could potentially be weak in the back if they're not switching out. That's going to be the Stone Edge. There's the switch into Meowscarada once again. And Meowscarada is just getting melted. 3 Incinerates is all it takes to pick up the knockout. Talonflame has the back-to-back charge attacks loaded. The Fly is going to be shielded, but it's actually going to be Goodra taking home the win. Goodra banked the Aqua Tail from earlier. That is going to be KOing that Clodsire and securing the game. Hopping into the next match, looks like we're now in daytime, but what a lead. Pangoro into Malamar. This is a dominant matchup for the Pangoro. Oh, the visuals looked really weird at the start there. It looks like Pangoro was able to catch back up, but the visuals paused for a second. Malamar goes for a superpower and now a safe switch into Gastrodon. The Gastrodon up energy is a little bit tricky for both Pangoro and for the Talonflame, but Pangoro is going to immediately fire off the back-to-back close combats. Close combat number 2 is going to land. There's the switch into Goodra, and Goodra is really able to punish the fact that Gastrodons don't run Earth Power anymore, because Gastrodon, I was going to say, is stuck on Water Pulse, but this trainer is still on Earth Power. I do think overall Water Pulse is definitely superior to Earth Power, just because with Water Pulse, you actually can fight back in some of Gastrodon's bad matchups. But in this scenario, having Earth Power actually works out a lot better for the opponent. Opponent is now going to be pivoting out into Furret. Furret answered with the Pangoro. Pangoro will get knocked out by a Swift, so Pangoro is forced to put up the shield. But Pangoro should be able to overfarm here, pick up the knockout with the close combat, and exit with energy as well to try and threaten whatever the opponent decides to send in. They're going to be waiting down the switch clock since they are still switch locked. In comes Malamar. Malamar is getting outpaced. I don't think that's what they had to bring in. They could have brought in the Gastrodon. Malamar gets shredded by a close combat. In comes the Gastrodon. That's getting knocked out by a Fly, and that's going to be a win. Pangoro versus Pangoro in the next game. So it looks like this trainer, very similar ideas when it comes to team building. Night Slash bait onto the opposing Pangoro. Will the opponent shield? Yes, they will, but no Night Slash boost comes through. Immediate no shield from Galaxicobolton. Galaxicobolton calls the Night Slash bait. That's a very nice play. Galaxicobolton now just going to go for the Night Slash himself. Night Slash will not be enough to knock out. Opponent knows it. They can let it go. In comes Clodsire. Clodsire to be met with the Shadow Talonflame. Shadow Talonflame has so much energy, it's too risky to try and no-shield. Opponent is on Sludge Bomb. So Talonflame, if it wants to, can survive a Sludge Bomb, but it will remove a lot of its remaining health. Flame Charge will connect the no-shield from the Clodsire. Clodsire able to outpace. Talonflame going to go for a double shield. This is a bit worrying because that means that the loaded energy on the opponent's Pangoro is guaranteed to connect. Opponent makes a final Sludge Bomb. Talonflame is too low, forced to switch out into the Goodra, and this means it's close combat time. In comes the Pangoro. Pangoro devastating damage with that close combat, and in the back is Corviknight. Goodra would love if the Corviknight CMP tied here, trying to overfarm to force the CMP tie, but the opponent will not fall for it. Instead, fully sand attacking down. There's a bunch of energy stored on the Talonflame, but the Talonflame is so low. In comes the Talonflame, going for the Fly into the Corviknight. Is this a charge attack priority tie? The Fly gets shielded. It is a charge attack priority tie, and that unfortunately will end the game as Air Cutter takes the knockout. In comes Pangoro, farmed down by the opponent, and that's a good game. Moving to the next match, and it's a pretty solid lead, Pangoro into Shadow Dusknoir. Well, on paper, it's a pretty solid lead, but Dusknoir can actually survive a Night Slash, so Dusknoir will be able to make this matchup a lot closer than it probably has any reason to be. But that's a really nice catch onto the Talonflame. Is this the Dynamic Punch? No, it's a Shadow Punch bait from the opponent, and now out comes Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres actually going to prioritize a one-shield farm down overthrowing energy. I do like the play pattern from the opponent because this way they have energy to actually threaten the Panda. In comes Pangoro. Pangoro absolutely has to respect the Fly. Moltres doesn't even have to go for the Brave Bird because Pangoro is very, very glassy. Pangoro with a very nice overfarm. Close combat will be picking up the knockout if it lands, but the opponent says no. They're trying to get all shields down, and they have achieved exactly that. So now all shields are down. Quick switch into Goodra. Goodra banking a ton of energy, as in the back is Empoleon. Empoleon's not going to be a big fan of the Thunder Punches from Goodra. Thunder Punch is going to land, and a second Thunder Punch will be able to take the knockout. But Empoleon has a parting gift. Empoleon leaves with a Drill Peck on charge attack priority. That's going to put the Goodra into red HP. Thunder Punch KOs Empoleon. There is still a decent amount of energy available on that Moltres. Quick switch into the Pangoro, sniping down the Dusknoir. The opponent trying to get the farm down. They do not get it. Back in comes the Moltres. Moltres does get the Fly. Fly will be knocking out the Pangoro. This is going to be a race to the finish. Goodra gets the Aqua Tail on very low HP. Goodra barely hanging on. Aqua Tail KOs the Moltres. What an incredibly exciting game. Hopping into the final match, picking up a pretty tricky lead, Pangoro into Shadow Scizor. The problem for Pangoro in this matchup is the monster bullet punch damage. Pangoro's karate chops don't do nearly enough damage compared to the bullet punches. Oh, what a beautiful catch onto Talonflame. The full Incinerate sneak, catching the Trailblaze. Unbelievable play by Galaxkabolton. Opponent brings in Guzzlord. They throw the Brutal Swing, but Brutal Swing simply will not be enough to pick up the knockout. Talonflame, since Dragon Tail does less damage this season, knows it can still throw on good timing. Fly will connect, but the next Dragon Tail will be able to deliver the KO. In comes Goodra. Goodra not going to get the farm down before Guzzlord makes one final charge attack. It is just going to be the Brutal Swing. Opponent sends out Galarian Corsola as their final Pokemon. Goodra opting for the slightly harder hitting Thunder Punch. Between the Goodra and the Pangoro, there's such little health remaining. In comes Pangoro. Opponent does throw the Nightshade, so Pangoro will get to use one of its shields. Pangoro gonna farm up to the back-to-back Night Slashes. Opponent should always no-shield the first in case there is a boost. First Night Slash gets shielded, tremendously risky, but does not get punished, as Pangoro does not get the Night Slash boost. Second Night Slash will land, and now it's the opponent who has no health on any of their remaining Pokemon. There's a low health Guzzlord. The Scizor took an Incinerate, so that's going to be very low too. Quick switch into the Guzzlord. Guzzlord just gets Dragon Breath down. In comes Corsola. Corsola should get KO'd by the Aqua Tail. Then all that's left is the Scizor. What's its HP looking like? Oh, that's basically KO'd. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. All in all, big congratulations to Galaxkabolton. Hitting rank 1 in the world is a massive accomplishment, and he hit it with a very unique team as well. As I mentioned at the start, I don't know if I'd personally recommend this team for climbing ELO just because it is a very unbalanced team, but it's a team that I imagine if you've never seen it before, it's almost impossible to read what's in the back, because if you see a Pangoro lead, you're probably not expecting a Goodra, and as a result, Galaxkabolton was able to use this unique team and get a pretty incredible accomplishment. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.